What happens when every advanced civilization in the galaxy declares something impossible? When the Karathi Empire, the wise Zilani Collective, and even the ancient Vortak all agree that some creatures are beyond saving? On a forgotten research station orbiting a dying star, one species dared to prove them all wrong. While aliens with technology spanning millennia walked away in defeat, humans did what they do best: they stayed. They fought. They refused to give up. This is the story of Kira, a creature so damaged that entire civilizations called her the Broken One. A being so lost that the galaxy's greatest minds declared her case hopeless. But humans have never been good at accepting the word impossible. Sometimes the most advanced species in the universe forget the most important truth: love doesn't need translation, hope doesn't require technology, and healing doesn't always come from science. Sometimes it just takes someone stubborn enough to try one more time. Welcome to the story of the Last Guardian and the human who refused to let her fall. Dr. Sarah Chan pressed her face against the cold viewport of the transport shuttle, watching the massive research station grow larger against the starfield. Station Helix looked like a metal flower blooming in space, its multiple arms stretching out from a central hub. But something felt wrong about it. The station's lights flickered in irregular patterns, and entire sections appeared dark. Why does it look so empty? Sarah asked the pilot, a tall Karathi with blue-green skin and 4 arms. Pilot Vexka's mandibles clicked nervously. Because it is empty, human. The last researchers left 3 cycles ago. You are the first to request passage here since then. He paused, his large compound eyes reflecting doubt. Are you certain you wish to continue? I can return you to the orbital port. Sarah clutched her medical bag tighter. I'm certain. Take me to the docking bay. The pilot's head tilted in the Karathi gesture for confusion. Your species truly is strange. 5 different civilizations tried to help the creature in Section 7. All of them failed. The Karathi Science Ministry, the Zilani Collective, even the Vortak healers, beings who have saved countless lives across the galaxy. They all declared the case hopeless. Maybe they didn't try hard enough, Sarah said quietly. As the shuttle docked, Sarah felt the familiar flutter of nerves in her stomach. She had volunteered for this mission against the advice of everyone she knew. Her colleagues at the Human Medical Corps called it career suicide. Her friends called it crazy. But Sarah had read every report about the creature in Section 7, and she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone had given up too quickly. The airlock hissed open, and Sarah stepped into the station's main corridor. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. Her footsteps echoed strangely in the empty halls. The artificial gravity felt slightly too light, making her bounce with each step. She pulled out her tablet and checked the station map. Section 7 was 3 levels down, in what used to be the xenobiology wing. As she walked through the abandoned corridors, Sarah saw signs of the hasty evacuation. Research equipment sat covered in dust sheets. Half-eaten meals still sat on tables in the cafeteria, now covered in a thin layer of mold. The elevator to Section 7 wheezed and groaned, making Sarah wonder if it had been properly maintained. When the doors opened, she was hit by a smell that made her eyes water, a mixture of antiseptic, decay, and something else she couldn't identify. The corridor stretched ahead of her, lined with empty laboratory chambers. Each one had a small window, and Sarah peered into them as she passed. Most were completely empty, but a few still contained pieces of abandoned equipment. At the end of the hall, she found what she was looking for. A large sign next to the last chamber read Containment 7 Alpha in multiple languages. Below it, someone had scrawled danger in what looked like Karathi script. Sarah's tablet beeped as it detected multiple warning signals from the chamber's systems. She approached the observation window and looked inside. The chamber was large, easily the size of a small apartment. The walls were lined with what looked like soft padding, and the floor was covered in a thick, gel-like substance that Sarah recognized as a universal healing medium used by most advanced species. In the center of the room, curled up in a corner, was the reason everyone had come here. The creature looked like no alien Sarah had ever seen. It was roughly humanoid in shape but larger, maybe 7 feet tall if it stood up. Its skin had once been a beautiful silver color, according to the reports, but now it was a dull gray marked with angry red wounds that wouldn't heal. Multiple arms, Sarah counted 6, were wrapped around its body in a protective posture. Its head was hidden, but she could see it trembling. What struck Sarah most was how alone the creature looked. In all her years as a xenobiologist and trauma therapist, she had never seen anything that radiated such pure despair. She activated the chamber's communication system. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Sarah. I'm here to help." The creature didn't respond. It didn't even look up. Sarah checked her tablet and pulled up the case files. The creature's name was Kira, though that was a human translation of a sound that no other species could pronounce properly. She was a member of a race called the Nethari, once the guardians of a now-dead world called Nethros Prime. The reports painted a picture that broke Sarah's heart. Kira was the last of her kind. Her entire species had been wiped out by a plague that turned their own life-giving abilities against them. The Nethari had been natural healers, able to absorb pain and injury from other beings and process it through their own bodies. They had been beloved across the galaxy as peaceful, gentle creatures who dedicated their lives to helping others. But, when the plague came, their healing abilities became a curse. The disease made them absorb everything around them, not just pain and injury, but illness, despair, even death itself. Within months, an entire species that had lived for helping others was destroyed by their own gift. Kira was found in a research facility where Nethari healers had been trying to find a cure for the plague. She had absorbed the death agonies of her entire race. Every report said the same thing: she was beyond help. The trauma had broken her mind, and her body was slowly consuming itself as her healing abilities ran wild without purpose. The Korathi had tried using their advanced medical technology to stabilize her. The Zalani had attempted to use their psychic abilities to reach her mind. The Vorthak, masters of biological manipulation, had worked for months to try to repair her damaged healing systems. Each attempt had failed, and each failure had left Kira worse than before. The final report, filed by the Vorthak lead researcher just 3 months ago, was particularly grim. It stated that Kira's condition was deteriorating rapidly and that she would likely die within the year. The recommendation was to let her pass away peacefully rather than subject her to more failed treatments. Sarah looked up from her tablet to see Kira still curled in the corner, trembling. "I know you can hear me," she said into the comms system. "I know you understand what I'm saying." The translator implants work both ways. Still no response. Sarah pulled up a chair and sat down in front of the observation window. "I read about your people," she continued. "I read about how they helped billions of beings across the galaxy. How they gave their lives to heal others. I read about the plague, and how it turned your gift against you." Kira's trembling seemed to increase slightly. "I also read about how every species that's tried to help you has given up," Sarah said. "They all decided you were broken beyond repair. But, here's the thing, Kira, humans don't really believe in beyond repair." Sarah leaned forward, pressing her hand against the window. "My species has a saying, it's not over until it's over. We've spent our entire history refusing to accept that some problems can't be solved. We're stubborn that way." For the first time, one of Kira's 6 arms moved slightly, as if she was listening. "I'm not going anywhere," Sarah said. "I don't care if it takes months or years. I don't care if every other species in the galaxy thinks I'm wasting my time. I'm going to sit right here until we figure this out together." Sarah spent the next few hours reading through all the research files while talking quietly to Kira. She explained human theories about trauma recovery, described Earth's oceans and forests, and told stories about her own life. Kira never responded, but Sarah noticed that the creature's trembling decreased when she spoke in calm, steady tones. As the artificial day cycle shifted to evening lighting, Sarah realized she had been talking for 6 straight hours. Her throat was dry, and her stomach was growling. She looked up to see Kira's head turn slightly in her direction, though she still couldn't see the creature's face. "I'm going to go find some food and a place to sleep," Sarah said. "But I'll be back tomorrow morning. And the morning after that. And every morning until we figure out how to help you feel better." Sarah stood up to leave, then paused. "Oh, and, Kira? All those other species that tried to help you? They failed because they were trying to fix you like you were a machine. But you're not a machine. You're a person who's been hurt. And people heal differently than machines do." As Sarah walked back down the empty corridor, she thought she heard something behind her. When she turned around, she saw Kira pressed against the window of her chamber, watching Sarah leave. For just a moment, their eyes met. Kara's eyes were silver, like liquid mercury, and they were full of more pain than Sarah had ever seen. But they were also full of something else, a tiny spark of curiosity. Sarah smiled and waved. "See you tomorrow, Kira." That night, Sarah set up a temporary living space in one of the abandoned research quarters. As she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she thought about all the warnings she had received about this mission. Everyone said Kara was dangerous, that her broken healing abilities could accidentally harm anyone who got too close. But what Sarah had seen in that chamber wasn't a dangerous monster. It was a person who had lost everything and everyone she had ever cared about. A person who had absorbed the death of her entire species and was slowly drowning in all that pain. The other species had tried to cure Kara's symptoms, but they had ignored the real problem. They had treated her like a medical puzzle to be solved rather than a traumatized individual who needed time, patience, and understanding. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, she was already making plans for the next day. She would bring some human food to share. She would tell Kara about Earth's healing traditions that focused on the spirit as much as the body. Most importantly, she would keep her promise to stay. In Section 7, Kara remained pressed against the window long into the artificial night, staring down the corridor where the strange human had disappeared. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about the pain that filled every corner of her mind. She was thinking about tomorrow. Sarah returned to Section 7 the next morning carrying a bag of supplies and a steaming cup of coffee. She had barely slept, her mind racing with ideas and theories about Kara's condition. When she reached the observation window, she found Kara sitting up for the first time, still in the corner but no longer curled into a tight ball. "Good morning," Sarah said, settling into her chair. "I brought breakfast." She held up a simple protein bar and took a bite. "I know you probably don't eat the same foods we do, but I thought you might like the company." Kara's silver eyes tracked Sarah's movements. Up close, Sarah could see that the creature's face was more human-like than she had expected, with features that seemed almost familiar despite their alien origin. Scars ran across Kara's cheeks and forehead, not physical wounds, but something deeper that seemed to shimmer just beneath the surface of her skin. Sarah pulled out her tablet and began reading through the previous research attempts. "I've been thinking about what the Korathi team tried," she said. "They hooked you up to their neural stabilizers for weeks, trying to calm your brain activity. But trauma doesn't work like that, does it?" For the first time, Kara made a sound, a low humming that reminded Sarah of whale songs from Earth's oceans. "That's what I thought," Sarah continued. "Trauma isn't something you can just switch off. It's something you have to work through." She leaned forward. "The Zalani tried to use their psychic abilities to reach into your mind and pull out the painful memories. But that's not healing, that's just hiding the problem." Kara's humming grew slightly louder, and Sarah realized it might be the Nethari equivalent of agreement. Over the next several hours, Sarah talked through every failed treatment attempt. The Korathi had tried to suppress Kara's healing abilities with drugs. The Zalani had attempted to erase traumatic memories. The Vorthak had tried to physically alter Kara's biology to make her more resilient. Each approach had treated Kara like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be helped. "Here's what I think happened," Sarah said, standing up and beginning to pace in front of the window. "Your people were healers, right? You absorbed pain from others and somehow processed it so they could feel better. But when the plague came, you absorbed something you were never meant to handle, death itself." Kara's entire body seemed to tense, her 6 arms wrapping around herself protectively. "I'm not trying to hurt you by talking about this," Sarah said gently. "I'm trying to understand. Because if we understand what happened, maybe we can figure out how to help you carry that weight differently." Sarah sat back down and pulled up files about Nethari biology on her tablet. "According to these reports, your species worked by taking negative energy, pain, illness, despair, and transforming it into something neutral. Like emotional digestion, almost. But what if you absorbed so much at once that you couldn't process it all?" Kara made the humming sound again, but this time it was filled with such sadness that Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "You're still carrying all of it, aren't you?" Sarah whispered. "The death of your entire world. The suffering of billions of people. It's all still inside you, isn't it?" Kara slowly nodded, and Sarah's heart broke a little more. "No wonder you're in so much pain," Sarah said. "No wonder your body is consuming itself. You're trying to process the death of an entire species all by yourself." Sarah stood up and placed both hands on the observation window. Kira, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You are not broken. You are not beyond help. You are a person who has been asked to carry more than any single being should ever have to carry. For the first time, Kira looked directly at Sarah. Her silver eyes were wet with tears that seemed to glow in the chamber's artificial light. On my world, Sarah continued, we have a saying, a burden shared is a burden halved. Maybe that's what you need, not someone to fix you, but someone to help you carry what you're carrying. Kira tilted her head, clearly confused. Sarah thought for a moment, then had an idea. Kira, what if I told you that humans can handle emotional pain differently than most species? What if I told you that we've spent our entire history learning how to carry grief and loss and trauma without letting it destroy us? She pulled up files about human psychology and trauma treatment on her tablet. We don't have healing abilities like your people did, so we had to learn other ways to deal with pain. We learned that trying to carry everything alone just makes it worse. We learned that sharing pain with others, talking about it, processing it together, that's what actually helps. Kara moved closer to the window, her 6 arms unfolding slightly. I think, Sarah said carefully, that maybe you need to share some of what you're carrying. Not all of it, that would probably kill me. But maybe just a little bit at a time. Maybe if we work together, we can help you process some of that accumulated pain. Kira's eyes widened in what looked like alarm. She shook her head vigorously and backed away from the window. I know you're scared, Sarah said quickly. I know the last thing you want to do is hurt someone else. But, Kira, I'm not asking you to heal me. I'm asking you to let me help you heal yourself. Kira made a new sound, a soft clicking that Sarah somehow understood as fear. You're afraid that if you touch me, you'll hurt me, Sarah said. You're afraid that your pain will contaminate me the way the plague contaminated your people. Kira nodded, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. Sarah felt a surge of determination. Then, we'll start small. We'll start safe. But we will start, because I'm not giving up on you. Over the next few days, Sarah established a routine. She would arrive each morning with food and coffee, sit by the window, and talk to Kara about anything and everything. She told stories about Earth, about mountains and rivers, about human cities and culture, about the way humans dealt with loss and grief. Kara began to respond more frequently, making her humming and clicking sounds that Sarah was starting to understand as a rudimentary form of communication. Sometimes Kara would point to things in her chamber, and Sarah would try to guess what she was asking about. On the 4th day, Sarah noticed something important. Kara's wounds, the angry red marks that covered her silver skin, seemed less inflamed when she was engaged in conversation. When she was distracted from her pain, her body seemed to heal slightly better. That's it, Sarah said excitedly. Your healing abilities aren't broken, they're just stuck in a loop. You're trying to process all that accumulated trauma, but you can't do it alone. You need interaction. You need connection. Sarah stood up and walked to the chamber's control panel. Kira, I'm going to ask the computer to lower the containment field. Not to turn it off, but just to lower it enough that we can touch hands through the barrier. Kira scrambled backward in terror, shaking her head and making distressed clicking sounds. I know you're scared, Sarah said calmly. But I've been studying your people's abilities for days. You can control how much you share, can't you? You can choose how much pain to absorb and how much to process. Kara nodded reluctantly. Then, choose to share just a tiny bit, Sarah said. Just enough so you're not carrying it all alone anymore. I promise I can handle it. Humans are tougher than we look. Sarah activated the control panel and lowered the containment field to its minimum setting. There was now just a thin barrier of energy between them, barely visible as a faint shimmer in the air. I'm going to put my hand against the barrier, Sarah said. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But if you want to try, just try, I'll be right here. Sarah placed her palm against the energy barrier. It felt warm and slightly tingly, like touching a mild electrical field. For long minutes, nothing happened. Kira stayed huddled in her corner, staring at Sarah's outstretched hand with a mixture of longing and terror. Then, slowly, Kira began to crawl forward. She moved like someone approaching the edge of a cliff, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. When she reached the barrier, she stared at Sarah's hand for another long moment. It's okay, Sarah whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Kara slowly raised one of her 6 arms and pressed her palm against the barrier, directly opposite Sarah's hand. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah felt a wave of emotion crash over her, not pain, exactly, but something deeper and more complex. It was like being hit by a tsunami of grief so profound that it took her breath away. She felt the weight of billions of lives lost, the crushing loneliness of being the last of her kind, the desperate agony of a healer who could no longer heal. But underneath all that pain, Sarah felt something else: relief. For the first time in years, Kara was sharing her burden with someone else. Sarah gritted her teeth and held on. The emotional weight was staggering, but she had trained for this. Human therapy techniques had taught her how to absorb someone else's pain without being destroyed by it. She breathed deeply, acknowledging the grief without letting it consume her. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the connection faded. Kara pulled her hand back and stared at Sarah in wonder. That, Sarah gasped, wiping tears from her cheeks, was just a tiny fraction of what you've been carrying alone, wasn't it? Kara nodded, but, for the first time since Sarah had arrived, she was smiling. How do you feel? Sarah asked. Kara looked down at herself in amazement. Some of her wounds had already begun to close, and her skin seemed slightly brighter. She made a sound that Sarah had never heard before, something like laughter mixed with relief. Better? Sarah asked. Kara nodded enthusiastically, then pointed to Sarah with concern in her silver eyes. I'm okay, Sarah said, though she felt emotionally drained. I'm sad about what you've been through, but I'm not broken by it. That's the difference between us and the other species that tried to help you. We know how to carry sadness without letting it destroy us. Sarah stood up, swaying slightly from exhaustion. I'm going to go rest for a while. But, tomorrow, if you want to try again, maybe share a little more, I'll be here. As Sarah walked back to her quarters, she thought about what had just happened. In 5 minutes of shared connection, she and Kara had made more progress than months of advanced alien medical treatment. The other species had been trying to cure Kara's condition. But Sarah realized that Kara didn't need to be cured. She needed to be heard. She needed someone to help her carry the weight she had been bearing alone. For the first time since arriving at the station, Sarah felt truly hopeful. They had a long way to go, but they had made a start. And, sometimes, a start was all you needed. 3 weeks into their daily sessions, Sarah noticed dramatic changes in both herself and Kara. The Netheri's skin had regained much of its original silver luster, and several of her deeper wounds had completely healed. More importantly, Kara had begun to communicate using simple gestures and the few human words she had picked up from their conversations. Good morning, Sarah, Kara said in heavily accented English as Sarah entered Section 7. Her voice was like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder, beautiful and alien but unmistakably warm. Your pronunciation is getting much better, Sarah replied, setting down her usual coffee and breakfast. She had started bringing extra food after realizing that Kara could actually digest some human nutrients, though she seemed to survive primarily on the energy she absorbed from their healing sessions. Over the past weeks, they had developed a careful routine. Each day, they would spend several hours talking before attempting their brief connection through the lowered barrier. During these sessions, Kara would share small portions of the traumatic energy she carried, and Sarah would help her process it using human psychological techniques. The work was exhausting for both of them, but the results were undeniable. Kara was healing not just physically, but emotionally. She had started asking questions about Earth, about humans, about Sarah's life before coming to the station. Today different, Kara said, settling near the barrier with obvious excitement. Today I want to show you something. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Show me what? Instead of answering, Kara pressed all 6 of her hands against the barrier at once. Sarah quickly placed her own hands in corresponding positions, and immediately felt something she had never experienced before in their sessions. Instead of pain and grief flowing from Kara to her, Sarah felt something else: joy, gratitude, and what could only be described as love. But, more than that, she felt memories that weren't her own flooding into her mind. She saw Nethros Prime as it had been before the plague, a world of crystal cities and floating gardens, where silver-skinned beings moved through the air on wings of pure light. She felt the warmth of Nethari families gathering together, sharing emotions and experiences through the same healing touch that Kara was using now. She experienced the deep satisfaction that came from healing others, the joy of taking away someone's pain and transforming it into something positive. She felt the connection that existed between all Nethari, a planet-wide network of beings who shared each other's burdens and celebrated each other's happiness. And then, she felt the plague arrive. Sarah experienced the horror of watching the healing gift become a curse, of feeling the network of connected minds being consumed by disease and despair. She felt Kara's desperate attempts to heal her dying people, absorbing more and more of their pain until she was drowning in it. But, instead of the overwhelming anguish that had characterized their earlier sessions, these memories came with a sense of peace. Kara wasn't just sharing her trauma anymore, she was sharing her entire life, the good and the bad together. When the connection ended, Sarah found herself crying, but this time the tears were mixed with joy and wonder. "That was beautiful," she whispered. "Your people, your world, it was incredible." Kara nodded, her silver eyes bright with happiness. "You understand now," she said in her musical voice. "Nethari not just healers. We were family. All of us, one big family." Sarah wiped her tears away and looked at Kara with new understanding. "And, when your family died, you lost more than just your people. You lost that connection, that sense of being part of something bigger than yourself." "Yes," Kara said softly. "For so long, I carried their pain alone. But, now..." She gestured between herself and Sarah. "Now I'm not alone." Over the following days, their sessions took on a new dimension. Instead of simply processing trauma, they began to explore what it meant to rebuild after loss. Kara shared more memories of her world, not just the tragic ending, but the thousands of years of beauty and peace that had come before. Sarah, in turn, began sharing her own memories through their connection. She showed Kara Earth's oceans and mountains, the feeling of wind through trees, the warmth of human friendships and family bonds. Most importantly, she shared human stories of resilience, of people who had lost everything and somehow found a way to build new lives. "Humans are good at starting over," Sarah explained during one of their conversations. "We lose things all the time, people we love, places we call home, dreams we've held onto for years. But we've learned that ending isn't really ending. It's just changing." Kara considered this carefully. "You think I can change? Become something new instead of just last Nethari?" "I think you already have," Sarah said. "You're not the same person who was found in that research facility. You're not even the same person who I met 3 weeks ago. You're becoming someone new, someone who carries the memory of your people but isn't destroyed by it." That afternoon, something extraordinary happened. While Sarah was showing Kara images of Earth's healing gardens on her tablet, the barrier between them suddenly flickered and died. The containment field had completely shut down. Both women froze, staring at the now empty space between them. "Alert, containment breach in Section 7 Alpha," the station's computer announced in a calm, mechanical voice. "Emergency protocols activating." Sarah heard the distant sound of blast doors sealing, cutting off their section from the rest of the station. She and Kara were now alone together in a sealed chamber with no barrier between them. "Sarah," Kara said quietly, "you should go. If I lose control..." But Sarah was already stepping forward, entering Kara's chamber for the first time. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly. Kara scrambled backward in panic. "No. It's too dangerous. I might hurt you." Sarah continued walking slowly toward her. "Kara, look at me. Really look at me." Reluctantly, Kara raised her silver eyes to meet Sarah's gaze. "Do you want to hurt me?" Sarah asked. "No," Kara whispered. "Never." "Then, you won't," Sarah said simply. "You have control over your abilities. You always have. You just forgot for a while because you were drowning in pain." Sarah sat down on the soft floor of the chamber, just a few feet away from Kara. "The other species that tried to help you were afraid of your power. They built barriers and containment fields because they thought you were dangerous. But you're not dangerous, Kara. You're just hurt." Kara stared at Sarah in amazement. "You not afraid of me?" Sarah smiled. "I'm a little nervous," she admitted. "But I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid for you. There's a difference." Slowly, hesitantly, Kara moved closer. When she was within arm's reach, she stopped and looked at Sarah questioningly. "It's okay," Sarah said, extending her hand. Kira reached out with one of her 6 arms and gently took Sarah's hand in her own. The skin-to-skin contact was electric, but not painful. Instead of the overwhelming flood of trauma that Sarah had expected, she felt a warm, gentle flow of emotion, curiosity, gratitude, and something that felt very much like friendship. How? Sarah breathed. I choose, Kira said simply. I choose what to share and how much. I forget this during dark time, but now I remember. They sat together in comfortable silence for a long time, hands clasped, sharing the simple pleasure of non-threatening physical contact. Sarah could feel Kira's healing abilities working, but instead of taking Sarah's pain, they were actually making her feel better, more relaxed, more at peace. This is what your people did, isn't it? Sarah asked. Not just heal injuries, but help people feel whole. Kira nodded. Nethari gift was bringing balance. Taking too much pain, giving back peace. But, when everyone die. She struggled for the words. I forget how to give peace. I only remember how to take pain. But, you remember now, Sarah said. Kira squeezed Sarah's hand gently. I remember because you teach me. You show me that healing is not just taking away bad things. Healing is also sharing good things. Over the next several hours, while they waited for the station's systems to reset and reopen the blast doors, Sarah and Kira talked about the future. For the first time since arriving at the station, they began to discuss what would happen after Kira was truly healed. I cannot go back to Nethari space, Kira said sadly. Nothing left there for me. Then, maybe it's time to find a new home, Sarah suggested. Somewhere you can use your abilities to help people again, but in a way that doesn't hurt you. Kira's eyes lit up with possibility. You think others would want Nethari healing? Sarah laughed. Are you kidding? Kira, your abilities could help trauma victims across the galaxy. Beings who've been hurt by war, by loss, by pain they can't process alone. You could teach them what you're learning, how to carry grief without being destroyed by it. And, you? Kira asked quietly. You would help me do this? Sarah felt a warm flutter of excitement in her chest. For the first time in her career, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. If you want me to, she said. I think we make a pretty good team. Kira's face broke into the first genuine smile Sarah had seen from her, bright and joyful and full of hope for the future. When the blast doors finally reopened hours later, the station's emergency systems found 2 beings sitting peacefully together in Section 7 Alpha, planning their next adventure. The containment field remained down, and neither Sarah nor Kira made any move to reactivate it. For the first time in years, Kira was exactly where she wanted to be, not trapped in isolation, but connected to someone who understood her pain and believed in her potential for healing. And Sarah had finally found what she had been searching for her entire career, not just a patient to cure, but a friend to save. 2 months after their first breakthrough, Sarah and Kira's work together had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Reports of the impossible healing had reached the major civilizations, and Station Helix was no longer the abandoned outpost it had once been. Sarah stood in the station's main communications hub, speaking with representatives from a dozen different species who appeared on holographic displays arranged in a semicircle around her. Each alien face showed a different expression of skepticism, curiosity, or outright disbelief. Dr. Chen, said Ambassador Thekfor of the Karathi Science Ministry, his blue-green skin shimmering with agitation. With respect, our most advanced medical teams spent months attempting to treat the subject. Are you seriously claiming that primitive human techniques succeeded where our technology failed? Sarah kept her expression calm and professional, though inside she was fighting back irritation. Ambassador, I'm not claiming that human techniques are superior to Karathi medicine. I'm saying that different problems require different solutions. Elaborate, requested the Zalani representative, her voice a harmonic blend that indicated deep concentration. The Zalani communicated primarily through telepathy, so speaking aloud meant she was taking this conversation very seriously. Sarah activated her tablet and displayed the data she and Kira had compiled over the past weeks. Every species that attempted to help Kira approached her condition as a medical problem requiring technological intervention. But trauma isn't just a medical condition, it's a psychological and social one. The hologram of Dr. Yithkane, a Vortak biospecialist, flickered with what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a dismissive gesture. You suggest that biology is secondary to what? emotional states? I'm suggesting, Sarah said firmly, that healing isn't just about fixing broken bodies. It's about helping broken people remember how to be whole again. Before any of the representatives could respond, the communication hub's doors opened and Kira entered. The effect on the assembled aliens was immediate and dramatic. Several of the holograms flickered as their operators leaned forward in surprise, and the Karathi ambassador actually made a sound of shock. The Kira who walked into the room bore little resemblance to the broken, traumatized being who had cowered in Section 7 just months before. Her silver skin gleamed with health and vitality, her wounds had completely healed, and her 6 arms moved with graceful confidence. Most remarkably, she radiated a sense of peace and strength that was almost tangible, even through the holographic displays. "Greetings, honored representatives," Kira said in carefully practiced galactic standard, her musical voice carrying clearly across the communications array. "I am Kira of Nethros Prime, last of the Nethari people. I wanted to thank you for your previous attempts to help me, even though they were unsuccessful." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the Zalani representative spoke, her harmonic voice tinged with wonder. "How is this possible? Our psychic scans indicated that your mind was shattered beyond repair." Kira moved to stand beside Sarah, and the two women exchanged a look of mutual support and affection that was visible even to the alien observers. "My mind was indeed shattered," Kira said calmly. "But shattered does not mean destroyed. With Sarah's help, I learned to gather the pieces and build something new from them." Dr. Yithkane's bio reading spiked with excitement. "The physiological changes are extraordinary. Your cellular regeneration rate is off the charts, but, more importantly, your neural pathways show complete reorganization. It's as if you've become an entirely different person." "In many ways, I have," Kira agreed. The Kira who was found in the research facility was dying under the weight of accumulated trauma. "I am not that Kira anymore. I am someone who has learned to transform pain into purpose." Ambassador Thekfor leaned forward in his display, his compound eyes focusing intently on Kira. "What exactly did the human do that our medical teams could not?" Sarah started to answer, but Kira placed a gentle hand on her arm, requesting permission to speak. "The difference," Kira said, "was not in technique or technology. The difference was in philosophy. Your medical teams tried to fix what was broken in me. Sarah helped me learn that I was not broken, I was simply carrying too much alone." Kira gestured to the assembled representatives with all 6 arms in a graceful, flowing motion. "Your species are advanced in many ways. You have conquered diseases, extended lifespans, built technologies that can reshape matter itself. But you have forgotten something that humans understand instinctively: healing is not something that happens to you. It is something you choose to do for yourself, with the help of others." The Vorthak doctor's reading spiked again. "But the biological impossibilities, how did you overcome the cellular breakdown caused by your overloaded healing abilities?" "I stopped trying to heal alone," Kira said simply. "Sarah taught me that burdens shared are burdens reduced. When I began sharing my pain with someone who could help me process it, my healing abilities remembered their true purpose." Sarah activated another display on her tablet. "What Kira isn't telling you is that this process took months of careful work. We had to develop entirely new therapeutic techniques, combining human psychology with Nethari biology. It wasn't a cure, it was a collaboration." The holographic displays fell silent as the representatives digested this information. Finally, the Zalani spoke again, her harmonic voice now tinged with something that sounded like awe. "You created a new form of healing," she said. "Not just medical treatment, but emotional partnership." "We created a friendship," Sarah said firmly. "Everything else grew out of that." Ambassador Thekfor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep thought in Karathi culture. "The implications of this are staggering. If trauma can be treated through emotional partnership rather than medical intervention, we could help beings who have been considered untreatable," finished Dr. Yithkane. "Soldiers suffering from war trauma, refugees from destroyed worlds, survivors of species-wide disasters." "Exactly," Sarah said. "But it requires a fundamental shift in how we think about healing. It's not about applying technology to fix people, it's about helping people discover their own ability to heal themselves." Kira stepped forward, her silver eyes bright with enthusiasm. "This is why Sarah and I have decided to leave Station Helix. We want to travel the galaxy, teaching other species what we have learned together. The announcement created a buzz of excitement among the representatives.
The Zelani were the first to respond. "The collective would be honored to host your first mission," their representative said.
"We have many individuals suffering from psychic trauma that our traditional methods have been unable to address."
The Karathi Science Ministry extends a similar invitation, Ambassador Thekvor added. "Our soldiers returning from border conflicts have shown symptoms similar to what Kira originally displayed." Soon, all the representatives were speaking at once, each offering resources and requesting assistance for their own traumatized populations.
Sarah held up a hand for silence. "We appreciate all your offers," she said.
"But we want to establish some ground rules first." Sarah activated a final display on her tablet, showing a comprehensive outline she and Kira had been working on for weeks. "This therapeutic approach requires patience, respect, and genuine emotional investment," Sarah continued.
"It can't be rushed, and it can't be mass-produced.
Each individual requires personalized attention and care. More importantly," Kira added, "it requires that the healer and the patient work together as equals. The old model of medical authority, where the doctor knows what's best for the patient, doesn't work with trauma recovery."
Dr. Yithkane's bio reading showed intense interest. "You're proposing a complete paradigm shift in how we approach psychological healing."
"We're proposing," Sarah said, "that we start treating trauma survivors as people instead of problems to be solved." The conversation continued for another hour, with representatives from various species asking detailed questions about methodology, timelines, and resource requirements. Sarah and Kira answered each question thoughtfully, making it clear that they had developed not just a successful treatment, but a comprehensive new approach to trauma recovery. As the session wound down, the Zelani representative asked one final question.
"Dr. Chen, Kira, what made this partnership work when so many other attempts failed?"
Sarah looked at Kira, and both women smiled.
"Trust," they said simultaneously.
"Trust," Sarah continued, "and the willingness to see each other as whole people, not just professional colleagues."
"I never saw Kira as a broken alien who needed fixing.
I saw her as someone who was hurting and needed a friend."
"And I never saw Sarah as just another doctor trying to cure me," Kira added.
"I saw her as someone who was genuinely committed to understanding my pain and helping me carry it."
Ambassador Thekvor made a sound of understanding.
"You formed a personal bond first, and the healing followed naturally from that bond."
"Exactly," Sarah said. "You can't heal someone you don't care about. And you can't be healed by someone you don't trust."
After the representatives signed off, Sarah and Kira stood alone in the communication hub, looking out at the starfield beyond the station's viewports.
"Are you ready for this?" Sarah asked quietly. "Traveling the galaxy, working with traumatized beings from dozens of different species?"
Kira was quiet for a long moment, then placed one of her hands on Sarah's shoulder. "For years, I believed I was the last of my people," she said softly. "I thought the Nethari were extinct, that our gift for healing had died with our world." She turned to face Sarah fully, her silver eyes bright with tears and joy. "But I understand now that being Nethari was never about where I came from or what species I belonged to. It was about choosing to help others heal, even when healing is difficult and painful."
Kira gestured toward the viewports, where the stars beckoned with infinite possibility. "There are wounded beings out there who have given up hope, just like I had.
Beings who have been told they are broken beyond repair, just like I was.
If we can help even a few of them discover their own strength."
She smiled, and the expression transformed her face with radiant hope. "Then, the Nethari are not extinct after all.
They are just beginning."
Sarah felt a surge of pride and excitement as she looked at her friend, her partner in healing, her companion in hope. Tomorrow, they would begin their real work together, traveling to worlds where trauma had been written off as incurable, where beings like the old Kira waited in despair for someone to prove that healing was still possible. They would carry with them not just new techniques and technologies, but something far more powerful, the knowledge that no one has to suffer alone, and that sometimes the most advanced healing comes not from medicine, but from one person refusing to give up on another. 1 year later, Sarah and Kira stood on the observation deck of their mobile healing center, a specially modified ship that served as both their home and their workspace. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they watched the binary sunset of Kepler Prime paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. "Status report," Sarah said with a smile, activating her personal tablet to review their recent achievements. Kira laughed, a sound that still filled Sarah with joy every time she heard it. We have successfully treated over 200 individuals across 15 different star systems, she said, consulting her own datapad.
Current success rate stands at 94%, with the remaining 6% showing significant improvement even if not complete recovery. Sarah shook her head in amazement.
When they had first left Station Helix, she had hoped they might help a few dozen beings at most. The reality of their success still sometimes overwhelmed her. Their ship, christened New Nethros by Kira, had become a legend throughout this sector of the galaxy. Beings who had been given up as hopeless cases by their own medical systems traveled thousands of light-years for the chance to work with the human Nethri team that had revolutionized trauma treatment. The Karathi Minister of Health called again this morning, Sarah continued, scrolling through her messages. 3 more of their military outposts are requesting our services. Apparently, the soldiers we treated on Karathi Prime are performing so well that the High Command wants us to expand our program. And, the Zelani Collective wants to establish a permanent healing center using our methods, Kara added. They offered to provide funding, resources, and a dedicated staff of psychic healers.
Sarah looked thoughtful.
That's the 5th major offer we've received this month. I'm starting to think we might need to consider training other healers in our techniques rather than trying to handle everything ourselves. This had been a recurring conversation over the past few months. Their success had created a demand that far exceeded what 2 people could handle, no matter how dedicated they were. The question was how to expand their work without losing the personal, individualized approach that made it effective. There's something else we need to discuss, Kara said quietly, her musical voice taking on a more serious tone.
Sarah noticed the change immediately and gave Kara her full attention.
Over the year they had worked together, she had learned to read her friend's moods with remarkable accuracy. I received a message this morning, Kara continued, from a deep space exploration vessel.
They found something significant.
Sarah felt her stomach tighten.
What kind of something? Kara activated a holographic display that showed a star map of a distant galaxy cluster.
A research team discovered ruins on a dead world in the outer rim.
Ruins that match Nethari architecture. Sarah's eyes widened. Another Nethari world?
Not just any world, Kara said, her voice barely above a whisper. The ruins show signs of recent habitation.
There are survivors, Sarah. Somewhere out there are other Nethari who escaped the plague. The news hit Sarah like a physical blow.
For over a year, she and Kara had operated under the assumption that Kara was truly the last of her people. The possibility that there might be others changed everything.
How many? Sarah asked.
Unknown, Kara replied. The exploration team detected life signs but couldn't make contact. The survivors seemed to be in hiding, probably traumatized by the plague just like I was. Sarah looked at her friend's face and saw a complex mixture of emotions there: hope, fear, excitement, and uncertainty, all warring for dominance.
What do you want to do? Sarah asked simply.
Kara was quiet for a long time, staring out at the binary sunset. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but thoughtful. A year ago, I would have said that nothing else mattered except finding my people. I would have dropped everything and rushed across the galaxy to reach them.
And now? Sarah prompted gently.
Now I understand that family isn't just about who shares your genetic code, Kara said, turning to look directly at Sarah.
Family is about who stands by you when you're broken.
Who helps you remember who you are when you've forgotten.
Who chooses to stay even when everyone else walks away.
Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes as she realized what Kara was saying.
You are my family, Sarah, Kara continued. You and all the beings we've helped this year.
All the people who trusted us enough to share their deepest pain. We built something here, a new kind of healing network that spans multiple species and star systems. Kara gestured toward the communications console, where messages of gratitude from their former patients arrived daily. This ship, our work, our partnership, this is my world now.
This is my people.
Sarah wiped away her tears, overwhelmed by the depth of love and loyalty in her friend's words.
But, Kara added with a gentle smile, that doesn't mean we can't expand our family a little more.
Sarah laughed despite her tears. You want to go find these survivors and bring them into our healing network. I want to go find these survivors and help them heal from their trauma, just like you helped me, Kara corrected.
And, if they want to join our mission afterward, they're welcome.
If they want to rebuild their own civilization somewhere else, we'll help them do that too. Sarah felt a surge of pride and admiration for how much her friend had grown over the past year. The Kara who had cowered in Section 7 would never have been able to make such a balanced, thoughtful decision.
When do we leave? Sarah asked. Kara's face lit up with joy. You want to come with me? Kara, Sarah said firmly, we're partners. Where you go, I go. That's what partners do. Over the next few hours, they made preparations for their longest journey yet. The outer rim was months away, even with their ship's advanced hyperdrive systems. They would need to arrange for other healers to take over their scheduled appointments and inform their various government contacts about their extended absence. As they worked, Sarah found herself thinking about how much had changed since that first day on Station Helix. What had started as a desperate attempt to save one traumatized being had evolved into a galaxy-spanning mission of healing and hope. Their methods had been studied and adapted by dozens of species. Medical schools across known space now taught courses on Chankara therapy as a standard treatment for complex trauma. Former patients had become advocates and teachers, spreading their philosophy of collaborative healing to new worlds. Most importantly, they had proven that the word hopeless was just another way of saying we haven't tried hard enough yet. The communications console chimed with an incoming message. Sarah activated the display and saw the familiar face of Dr. Martinez, her former supervisor at the Human Medical Corps. Sarah, I just wanted to check in before you depart for the Outer Rim, Dr. Martinez said. I've been following your work, and I have to admit, when you first requested that assignment to Station Helix, I thought you were making a career-ending mistake. Sarah laughed. You weren't the only one. But, look what you've accomplished, Dr. Martinez continued, his voice filled with admiration. You've revolutionized trauma treatment across multiple species. You've given hope to beings who had been written off as untreatable. And, you've shown the entire galaxy that sometimes the most important breakthroughs come not from advanced technology, but from simple human compassion. It wasn't just me, Sarah said, glancing at Kira, who was monitoring their departure preparations. I had a very good partner. Which brings me to my main reason for calling, Dr. Martinez said. The Medical Corps has approved funding for a formal expansion of your program. If you're willing, we want to establish Chankara healing centers in every major star system, staffed by teams trained in your methods. Sarah felt a thrill of excitement at the possibilities this opened up. How many teams? To start? 50. Eventually, we're hoping for hundreds. Sarah looked at Kira, who had been listening to the conversation with growing amazement. We'll think about it, Sarah said. Right now, we have some family members to find. After the communication ended, Sarah and Kira stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars whirl by as their ship accelerated toward the outer rim. 50 healing teams, Kira said eventually. Hundreds of healers using our methods. Thousands of traumatized beings getting the help they need. It's what you dreamed about when we first started, Sarah reminded her. A galaxy-wide healing network. I dreamed of rebuilding the Nethari network, Kara corrected. But, this is better. This isn't just one species helping their own kind. This is dozens of species working together to help anyone who needs it. Sarah smiled as she thought about the future they were building, a galaxy where trauma wasn't a life sentence, where beings could heal from even the worst experiences, where no one had to suffer alone. You know what the best part is? Sarah said. What? We're not the only ones doing this work anymore. Those 50 teams will probably train 50 more teams each. Eventually, there will be Chankara healers on worlds we've never even heard of, helping beings we'll never meet. Kara's silver eyes sparkled with tears of joy. Our children, she said softly. Not biological children, but legacy children. People who carry our mission forward to places we can't go. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, beginning the long journey to find Kara's surviving people, Sarah reflected on the strange path that had brought them to this moment. She had come to Station Helix expecting to spend a few months treating one traumatized alien. Instead, she had found her life's purpose and her dearest friend. She had learned that healing wasn't about fixing what was broken, it was about helping people discover that they were never really broken in the first place. That trauma might bend someone, but it didn't have to define them. That the most powerful medicine in the galaxy wasn't technology or medication, it was the simple refusal to give up on someone. Months from now, they would find the Nethari survivors, a small group of Kara's people who had indeed been hiding in fear and trauma on a dead world. They would spend time helping them heal,
teaching them the same collaborative methods that had saved Kara.
Some of those survivors would choose to join their healing mission.
Others would decide to rebuild their civilization elsewhere. A few would become healers themselves, carrying Nethari wisdom to new corners of the galaxy. But all of them would learn the same lesson that Kara had discovered in Section 7 of Station Helix, that no one is ever truly alone, and that healing is always possible when someone cares enough to try. As Sarah drifted off to sleep in her quarters that night, she smiled thinking about the message she would send to Dr. Martinez tomorrow.
Yes, they would accept the Medical Corps' offer. Yes, they would train new healing teams.
Yes, they would help expand their network to every corner of known space. Because that's what you do when you discover something that works, you share it with everyone who needs it. In the end, that was the most human thing of all, the stubborn belief that if you could help one person, you could help anyone, and that no problem was too big to solve as long as you were willing to work together. The last Guardian had found her purpose, and the galaxy was about to become a much more hopeful place.